Hey guys, welcome to the MMA Brothers podcast, the newest, baddest, and best podcast out there. And let's get it going.
Hey guys, Asher here back with another episode of the MMA Focus. This is episode 3, and today's guest we have Ahmed. And Ahmed is a very, very special athlete in the GTA Canada area. He's an MMA coach at McMaster University right now. And I'm really, really happy that he said yes to being on this podcast. And I'm excited for him to kind of break down his experience with wrestling and his life journey and how he became an MMA coach for McMaster University.
Wrestling coach.
Oh, sorry. I didn't say MMA. Wrestling. Sorry. Wrestling coach. So
No problem.
thank you for joining this podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So first things first, we are both from the same high school, right? So I guess that's when it all started, right? In high school?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Grade 9 gym class.
Yeah.
Class. The geography teacher, Dimitri Papadopoulos.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of you guys know him. He just bugged me in geography class every day to come up for wrestling. And,
Yeah.
eventually did. Wasn't very good at it to start, but I really liked it. So I stuck with it.
Nice, man. Because I remember, I actually talked about this in the previous video. I had Papadopoulos do the same thing to me, actually. Like in geography class, grade 9, exact same time. He told me, he's just like, hey, Asher, like, I remember exactly what he said to me. It's like, hey, Asher, like, like they say, like, Africans, like, they have the heart of a lion, blah, blah, and stuff, right? I'm not making this up. I remember I was 13 and he was telling me this.
That sounds like something he'd say.
Yeah, exactly, right? And he's like, they have the heart of a lion. Like I think you have it in you to be a good wrestler and stuff. And you should come out to wrestling practice after school. I'm like, okay. And then I went and got manhandled a couple times and stuff. I didn't pursue it. I went a couple times and then I stopped after that. So I kind of not feel bad, but I kind of feel like it's not in me to like quit when I do things these days. So knowing that I did something like that when I was younger, I'm like, what was I thinking? Because look, I could be like you, man. I could have been the one that was the MMA coach or wrestling coach at McMaster. I'm just joking. But yeah, so Papadopoulos talked to you then, and then from there, what happened?
Yeah, man. So I started wrestling. I remember going to my first tournament. I lost all my matches, and you know what? Like I almost quit too. I almost quit, and for some reason, Dimitri, I don't know. I guess saw something I did, and he kind of just encouraged me to stay with it. So I'm very thankful to have a good, influential coach like him. I stuck with it, and it got a little bit better. Eventually, started winning some matches. He's a McMaster alumni. He started taking me out to some of the university practices at McMaster. And once I immersed myself in an environment like that, it was a very high intensity environment. I did get my ass kicked a lot, but just by being in a room like that, I started getting a lot better and I started performing a lot better at the high school level. Eventually, I was able to get to a national team level for high school. And then, McMaster recruited me. So I eventually joined their team when I got to university. Started doing very well when I competed with them. I had great coaching when I was there. Again, very thankful for the coaching that I've had. And eventually I won 2 national titles for McMaster and joined the national team at the senior level. And then when I graduated, and an opportunity opened up to be the coach for McMaster. So it was just McMaster
Yeah.
along the way, but it was just a very step-by-step progression. Basically, there's many times along the way where it got difficult and, again, like thought about quitting. But I really, really enjoyed wrestling. I really loved the sport. So I just kind of stuck with it and things kind of snowballed from there.
Right. That's awesome, man. So in terms of like competition, what was the highest level that you reached?
I'd say my most impressive result was I won the 2017 Francophone Games. So it's a games tournament. Like, how the Olympics is a games tournament, happens once every 4 years.
Right.
There's regional ones and they're games. And so like there's Pan Am Games, Commonwealth Games, there's
Right.
Francophone Games. So Francophone Games was like a tournament for all countries that were once occupied by the French Empire.
Right.
So I ended up winning that. I beat Romania in the semifinals and then Armenia in the finals. Eastern European countries are pretty good at wrestling.
Right.
So those were some big wins for me. I'd say that's my most impressive win today. I got second at Pan Am's 2015. And won 2 national titles for MAC. Placed at the top 3 at the senior national level a few times. I never won senior nationals yet, but hopefully soon. I got third at Olympic trials, and yeah, I'd say those are some of the results. But yeah, international competition has been very, very enjoyable for me. I love competing against other countries, like representing the flag, and it's just when you compete against people that domestically, it's a little bit different than like having some form of competition. And it's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, that probably takes you to the next level, right? Because like you said, you're competing for your country and stuff, and some random guy abroad, you may not know much about him, but like he's working just as hard as you are, and he's doing it for his country too.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, man. Respect.
Thanks, man.
I don't know. I've never met anybody that's ever gone this far in athletics before. And so you had mentioned you were placed third in Olympic trials. So
Yeah.
how does that work in terms of the Olympics? Do you have to be first?
You have to be first. So like in terms of this cycle, like I was really, really gunning to try and win, and it didn't fall through. Just didn't have the best things. Just didn't have the best day of competition. The circumstances were a little bit difficult taking on the head coaching role the same year I was going for the Olympics. It was
oh my God, yeah.
tough. But yeah, like I don't think I'll have a shot going now. It's usually the top person in that weight class, and once you win your weight class, you still don't get to go. You still have to qualify your country to go. So what happens is you win Olympic trials, you're the representative for Canada, then you have to go to the Pan Am qualifier. The Pan Am qualifier is a regional qualifier in the world. So it's all of North America, South America. Top two from there get to go to Olympics. So even if you don't win Olympic trials in your country, or even if you win Olympic trials in your country, you don't necessarily get to go to the Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very, very competitive to go to the Olympics.
Yeah. Wow, man. And so the Francophone Games, I guess that's like a totally separate tournament, right?
Yes.
Is it something that you're going to be competing in like frequently, or is it just like a one and done kind of thing?
So it's once every 4 years, right? So the next one would be in 2021. So if I get the opportunity to compete in the next one, I would for sure do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And where did you win it? What country were you in when you won this tournament?
It was in Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire in Africa.
Yeah.
What? That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like one of the coolest tournaments I've ever wrestled, just because I also got to experience like African culture.
Yeah.
And it was, man, like just a different world. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And the fans there, like the people watching, were like some of the most passionate fans I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like in Canada, for example, if you're wrestling a tournament, there's a big takedown, people will be like, whoa, in the crowd. There, every single takedown, people were going crazy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, people were like coming up to me after taking selfies and stuff. It was so cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, man, you're like a big athlete there, right?
Oh no, it wasn't me. They were doing that to all the athletes. Yeah,
Right.
but it was just because they were so passionate, and like that's what I really liked.
Yeah.
I just also liked the culture there. It was really cool culture to experience.
Nice, man. Have you been to any other countries in Africa or just Cote d'Ivoire?
That I've done a lot of traveling, but the only country I've been in Africa is Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah. And how long were you there for the tournament? A month?
2
or 2
weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks? Oh, okay. So I guess you start from the round of 16? Is that how it works? And then to the championship, or?
Well, like I was there for the duration of the games. My tournament was just 1 day.
Oh.
Yeah, they do all the matches in 1 day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So like the different sports, different weight classes take place on different days. But my tournament was just the 1 day.
Wow.
Yeah. There's opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies, all that stuff too.
So for the 2 weeks that you were there, were you just training or like kind of like touring around, or like what were you doing for 2 weeks while you're there?
Well, I was very early on, so I got to compete. I got it done. We did like a lot of events, like opening, closing ceremonies, and then like we did like a few tours. Like we went to a safari that was really cool.
Nice.
But for the most part, we hung out in the village, interacted with people in like other sports, because it wasn't just wrestling; it was all the sports. Like when we took a flight there, it was like a charter flight, and all the like a lot of the other teams were on there. So I got to meet a lot of people from other teams. It wasn't very accessible in terms of going out in like the city, just because it's just stringent in terms of safety. But when we did get to go, it was really cool.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So what animals did you get to see?
You know what, man? Just like we got to go to like different, like we went to a mall, we went to safari. I don't know, like I didn't get to go too much. I wanted to, but
Nice.
They didn't allow us to.
Yeah.
Like another cool country I got to go to was Iran. So I went and wrestled the World Cup in Iran, and wrestling is the national sport in Iran. And so that was really cool. Like the fans were like really passionate and like really pumped up. But in Iran, if you're like an American or Canadian citizen, if you go, you have to have a chaperone with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to, but I really loved the culture experience. It was like one of the coolest countries I've ever been to, and the people were just amazing, very friendly, very passionate, and like again, very big fans of wrestling. So
Nice.
it's weird because in Canada you're not used to that.
Right.
Then you go somewhere else and it's completely different.
Nice. So, if you don't mind me asking, what's your ethnic heritage?
I'm originally Palestinian.
Palestinian. Okay. Nice. Going back, how's your French level, by the way? Because you competed the French. Are you good at French or
No,
like?
not at all. And like there was a lot of the other countries that were there. Basically, the way you would interact with them is that you'd speak French, and like they would come to speak French to me, and I wouldn't know, and I'd feel kind of embarrassed, you know. But yeah, I wish it was better.
Yeah. And that's one thing. Like, I mean, when we're in high school, like they up until grade 9, you're forced to learn French, right? But then, you know, many people have different reasons why they don't continue learning. For me, I think honestly, it was just like, oh, I didn't really see the value in me learning French. Everybody knows English, but the older you go, you kind of realize like, damn, I wish I could speak like, you know, another language and just interact with these people from different parts of the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I kind of have some respect for Cole Bowen, right? Like,
Oh
you know,
man,
him,
yeah.
He knows like 10 languages. I'm like, bro, like, good on you, man, you know?
That's what, man. Going back, like if I have aspirations to eventually learn another language. Like I speak Arabic and speak English, but like just the fact that I get to speak something like another language like Arabic is like a privilege for me. Do you speak another language?
I do. So it's an African language from my parents in Zambia. It's called Bemba. So you can speak it. It's not like an international language and stuff, but when I go back home, I can understand what people are saying to me. So.
Still, man, like I've heard that like knowing another language just forms a lot of other connections in your brain. Just because, you know, like there's thoughts that can't be represented with certain words. But the thing is, if you know more words or more representations of like certain ideas or you have more, like you can build better connections in your brain. I don't know if that's legit or not, but I've heard that and it makes sense. But yeah, just knowing like a second language is like very, very good. Imagine knowing more. Like if I have kids, I think that's something I would definitely like try to teach them more of, like another language or something.
For sure. And I think you're right. I think once you master that second or third language, all the other languages after that I think are pretty easy to learn.
Totally.
I'm learning Korean right now.
No way.
Yeah. And like it's a very, very hard language to learn because like the structure of the grammar is not the same as English, right? Like you know how I can say the sentence like, oh, I am playing soccer. Like in Korean it could be like I soccer playing, or like, you know what I mean? Like things are not, they don't fit the same way. So like you have to think about it in a different way, and obviously like the writing is a different language and stuff. So yeah, languages can get really hard to learn.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Did you pick up any Korean when you were in Korea or?
A little bit. Like I could say like, you know, hi, how are you? I could say like, oh, the food is good, and like bye-bye. Just very simple, like polite things to say in public. Oh, sorry, or I'm okay, whatever and stuff. So those simple things. But in Seoul, which is the capital of the country, a lot of people can speak English there. So just like how we learn French as a second language in Canada, they learn English as a second language in the country. So they have a certain level of basic English that like a lot of people understand. So which is helpful.
Very educated, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've done like some traveling and like a lot of like European countries, or even like I remember like interacting with the Japanese national team once. Like they knew a lot of English, but we like I can't speak their language.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show like a lot of these countries are like more, I guess English is a very international language, but like if they're learning another language, like why shouldn't we?
I know. If you go to Europe and stuff, like so many people speak so many different languages there. Like you find some person in France can speak, oh, I can speak some Spanish, I can speak some English or whatever. And like you said, English is an international language, but it just goes to show how privileged we are, right? That there's people out there working so hard just to be able to learn a language so they can communicate with so many people.
Yes.
But we're just here like, oh, whatever, you know what I mean? So like, I learned that, especially like you say, when you travel and you meet these people and they realize how golden English is, and we're like, what the hell? I'm just talking. Like, it's normal to me, you know? So
man, you know what's funny is like when like people will make fun of like, let's say like a foreign person tries to speak English and they have an accent, like we make fun of their accent. It's like, dude, you would have the worst accent ever if you tried to speak their language.
Of course,
yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. Going back to the wrestling, what weight did you compete at?
So when I started wrestling in grade 9, I was 47 kilos. I actually cut down to 45, and then when I started university in first year, I wrestled 57 kilos, and then now I wrestle 86.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so went up a lot. I was a very small kid before,
Right.
a little chubby in grade 9 too.
No, I remember. Like now you're much bigger and your voice is much deeper. It's like puberty hit you when you're in university or something.
Honestly, like in first year I was 57 kilos, and then in second and third year I wrestled 72. I made but I cut a lot of weight to get to 57. I remember I cut like 22 pounds.
Oh wow.
To get to 57 kilos.
Yeah.
And then after that I was like, I'm done. I'm not cutting a lot of weight. I'm gonna gain a bunch of weight and wrestle what I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So in terms of like, I'm not too, don't make me sound stupid, but I'm not too experienced with this in terms of wrestling and weight cutting. So I know like in the UFC, like a lot of people, they switch weight classes if one weight class isn't working too well for them. They can move up or down or whatever and stuff like that. Is that common in the wrestling world?
It's very common.
Yeah.
It's like cutting weight is a big part of wrestling, and the international federation, it's called United World Wrestling. They're trying to prevent people from cutting weight. So what actually happened is that like there's a lot of people that cut weight like 20, 25 pounds. Like in my situation, like I had to cut 22 pounds because to fill a weight class for our varsity lineup. And the International Federation implemented this rule 2 years ago to try and eliminate weight cutting. And so usually we have weigh-ins the day before competition, 24 hours before. And so now they have it morning of weigh-in.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So like now you weigh in 2 hours before you wrestle. And so I sit at about 81 kilos. And so I used to wrestle 74 kilos. I would cut 7 kilos to get to 74 kilos. And after they implemented that, I was like, man, if I cut 7-8 kilos and weigh in and then compete 2 hours later, I'm gonna feel like terrible.
Yeah, you have no water in your body, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can only hydrate so much in 2 hours. So like usually I cut about like 4 kilos of water weight. And so I decided to go up to 86 and gain some weight. And so now I'm about 85 kilos. Like, but I'm still too small for my weight class. Like to be competitive at 86, I need to be about 90 kilos. So that was kind of also a difficult thing that I had to deal with leading up to Olympic trials. But if I wrestle the next cycle, I'll have a lot of time to put on a weight. So I feel like for my overall long-term picture of my wrestling career, this would be the better move, because then I would only have to cut 3 kilos and I'll feel fine for competition. So like long-term, this would be better.
Nice. So in terms of diets and stuff, like do you diet at all for like your competition and whatnot, or?
Yeah, like people will like go on low carb diets to eliminate some of the water weight from their body, and you lose a lot of fat there, and like when you go on a low carb diet. So like depending on how much weight you're losing, like 3-4 weeks out, you'll kind of like start decreasing the amount of food. When I was like early on in my wrestling career, I was very bad at it. I would just like starve myself and like just try to like lose the weight as quickly as possible. And then like the day before weigh-ins or the day of, you cut a lot of water weight. So I'll just go in the sauna, put on sweats, bike in the sweats, and just try to cut out as much water weight as I can. So like basically what the premise is that with water weight, you want to be on weight for like a second, weigh in and then rehydrate. So let's say you got to lose 4 kilos of water weight, weigh-ins are at 5 o'clock. Let's say I start at 1 p.m. I think I can lose 4 kilos in 4 hours. I do that, weigh in and rehydrate, and in 24 hours I'll feel fine. But with morning of weigh-in, it's obviously not the same. So that's what I used to do. I sweat a lot, so that was very helpful for me. But not everyone can cut weight. Some people can get away with it. Some people feel like, some people don't sweat a lot, so they don't do it as much, right? So everyone has different things that work for them.
Wow. Yeah. Now I'm only aware of this because I'm a UFC fan. And so like I see some of the brutal weight cutting that takes place in the sport, and some of it is really, really bad. Like I don't know if you followed McGregor when he used to fight at 145. Like he looked like he was about to die and stuff, it was so bad. And I'm like, how is he cutting like 25 plus pounds and stuff, So
it's not feasible over the long term. Like now he's not fighting at that weight. Why? Because it just wasn't feasible for him in the long term. So yeah, you can do it, but it'll just give you temporary success. The ultimate key to being successful in a combat sport is to be a good athlete, be as good of an athlete as you can, be strong, fast, agile, right? And then be very, very good in the sport itself, technically, tactically sound, and be a student of the game. Those two things will serve you way more than a stupid weight cut, right? A weight cut could be an extra additive to get that competitive edge, but like if you consistently cutting 20, 25 pounds, like it's just not good for your body. It's not feasible over the long term. I've seen what I found too over my wrestling career when I would cut a lot of weight, I would lose a lot of weight for a wrestling tournament, and then I would gain back the weight instantly, and I would gain more weight than I
you were
initially
at
had.
before. Yeah.
Exactly. So I found that I was starting to be not as good of an athlete. I was starting to get burnt out. I wasn't mentally as motivated for the sport, and that's why I eventually decided to cutting weight out. And the thing is that when you cut weight, you lose muscle. Okay, you weigh in and then you gain all that back, but you gain it back in fat. So what you're doing is you're actually changing your body composition over time.
Right.
And like you gain back even more. It's called the yo-yo effect.
Right.
And so it's just not healthy. And I actually seen a lot of eating disorders develop from it.
Really?
Yeah, people will either like go more like towards the losing weight side.
Right.
But there's also eating disorders where you start to binge eat more. Like for example, there's binge eating disorder. And so when I started learning about all that stuff, I just realized that, it's just not feasible over time, and decided to cut it out. And now as a coach, sometimes people will sometimes we are in positions where we're gonna have to cut a little bit of weight, but I never really impose it on my athletes. And I never do it to a degree where it's unsafe. If you cut 3 kilos, 4 kilos, it's like, that's doable, especially if you're a bigger athlete. But I never take the route of imposing it. And sometimes that can be a cultural thing in wrestling, where wrestling coaches are imposing it on because they think it's going to give them the competitive edge. I disagree with that.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. You met George St. Pierre, right?
Yeah.
Where is in TriStar? Is that where you saw him? Or?
So I remember a few years ago, I went and did a training camp at Montreal Wrestling Club, and he trains there a lot. So I got to meet him there. And then I also one time wrestled the Concordia Open, which is in Montreal, and he was there watching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of the Montreal wrestlers are really good wrestlers, and they have a really good wrestling club there. And so he goes and trains with them there all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So the second time you saw him, did you get the chance to talk to him at all, or?
You know what, man? Like at the tournament, everyone was all over him.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And even like when we were in the practice, like he was very friendly, very good guy. But like he's also training, so you don't want to
you don't want to be annoying.
Yeah. But just by being around him, he was a very, very he was very humble. Although he's famous and although he's successful, he didn't give off that vibe of being arrogant or anything like that. Yeah. So
that's awesome, man. That's so cool. But no, that's pretty much it. Last thing I wanted to say though is I heard you won an award from McMaster. Is that true for your coaching?
Yeah, I got OUA Coach of the Year.
Nice, man. It's so humble, I had to get that out of you. So so the plan, I guess, is to continue coaching, right? I mean, it's looking pretty good and everything is going well and stuff, and continue to wrestle, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I really like the McMaster program. I've been part of it for a long time. Right. I want to carry that legacy forward.
Nice. It's kind of strange, actually. Today, Ahmed just came over to do this podcast, and somebody rang the doorbell. I randomly just got this book from McMaster, so it's like a yearbook. I graduated 3 years ago, but yeah, it's just the timing of it is insane. I thought so. I know, and I'm like, what the hell? But anyways, that pretty much wraps it up, man. Thank you very much for doing this for me. I really, really appreciate it, guys. And that's Ahmed. You got to hear his story. And looking forward to the fights coming up, guys. Really appreciate you guys watching and listening. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.